Kidnappers dragged a little alien girl through the streets. Only one human stood in their path. The screams cut through the industrial hum of Sector 7's loading docks like broken glass. Nakamura dropped his plasma welder, the tool clattering against the cargo container's metal floor as he spun toward the sound. His calico cat, Patches, leaped from her perch on a supply crate, every muscle tense. The child's cries weren't human, too musical, too layered with harmonics that made his chest ache. But the terror was universal. Finn's scarred hands clenched as memories of his own daughter's final moments threatened to surface. He'd lost Kira to the factory explosion 3 years ago, and that particular wound never stopped bleeding. Two figures in maintenance coveralls dragged a small, struggling form between the shipping containers. The child was maybe 8 years old, her skin a pale blue-silver that caught the dock's harsh lighting like polished metal. Her large dark eyes reflected pure panic as she fought against restraints that glowed with containment fields. The kidnappers wore modified breathing masks, probably to filter out whatever pheromones the alien child was releasing. Patches hissed, her fur standing on end as she positioned herself between Finn and the approaching group. The cat had always been protective, but this reaction was different, more intense, as if she recognized something in the child that demanded defense. "Please," the child gasped in accented standard, her voice like wind chimes in a storm. "Please help me. They're taking me from my father." One of the kidnappers, a stocky man with gang tattoos covering his neck, backhanded her across the face. The sound echoed off the containers, and something primal roared to life in Finn's chest. His daughter's face flashed in his memory. The same helpless terror, the same desperate need for someone, anyone, to step forward. "Keep moving, freak," the tattooed man snarled. "The buyers are waiting." Finn stepped out from behind the container, his work boots echoing against the metal decking. Both kidnappers looked up, surprised to find someone in what should have been an empty sector during shift change. "Let her go." His voice carried the flat authority he'd learned managing dock crews for 12 years. Not a request, a statement of fact. The second kidnapper, a thin woman with augmented eyes that glowed orange in the dim light, laughed. "Walk away, dock rat. This doesn't concern you." Patches moved closer to the alien child, her posture protective despite the danger. The child's eyes widened as she noticed the cat, and something remarkable happened. Her fear lessened, not disappeared, but softened, as if the small animal's presence reminded her that not all beings on this station meant harm. "Everything on these docks concerns me," Finn replied, pulling a heavy wrench from his tool belt. It wasn't much of a weapon, but he'd learned to work with what he had. "And kidnapping children definitely concerns me." The tattooed man reached for a plasma pistol at his hip. "You don't understand what you're dealing with, human. This is Zephyrian nobility, worth more than you'll make in 10 lifetimes. Zephyrian. Finn filed that information away as he calculated distances and angles. The child's people were known for their advanced technology and rigid social hierarchies. If she was nobility, that explained the professional kidnappers and the obvious value they placed on her. "I understand enough," he said, taking another step forward. "I understand she's scared. She's just a kid, and you're hurting her." The child made a sound like crystal bells ringing underwater, and suddenly Patches wasn't the only one reacting to her distress. Throughout the cargo bay, mechanical systems began fluctuating. Lights flickered, loading equipment powered down and restarted, and the artificial gravity seemed to hiccup. Both kidnappers stepped back, their confidence cracking. "She's going into sympathetic resonance," the woman hissed. "We need to sedate her now." But they'd made a critical error. They'd taken their attention off Finn to focus on their captive. He lunged forward, bringing the wrench down on the tattooed man's wrist with practiced precision. The plasma pistol scattered across the deck as the kidnapper screamed, clutching his shattered bones. The woman spun her weapon toward him, but Patches was already moving. The cat launched herself at the kidnapper's face, claws extended, creating enough chaos for Finn to tackle her. They went down hard, the pistol flying from her grip to clatter into the shadows between containers. "Run!" Finn shouted at the child as he wrestled with the second kidnapper. "Get to the main corridors!" But instead of fleeing, the child closed her eyes and took a deep breath. The mechanical fluctuations throughout the bay intensified, and suddenly every security alarm in the sector began wailing. Emergency lighting bathed everything in red, and Finn heard the distant sound of security teams responding to the automated distress signal. The Zephyrian girl had somehow triggered the station's entire emergency response system. As sirens echoed through the cargo bay and the thunder of approaching boots grew louder, both kidnappers realized their window had closed. The tattooed man stumbled to his feet, cradling his broken wrist. "This isn't over," he snarled, but he was already backing toward the emergency exits. The woman followed, abandoning their prize in favor of escape. Finn remained crouched beside the child, his heart hammering from adrenaline and something deeper, the same protective instinct that had driven him to work double shifts to provide for his own daughter, to read her stories every night despite bone-deep exhaustion, to promise her that Daddy would always keep her safe. He'd failed Kira, but maybe, just maybe, he could succeed here. "You're safe now," he told the alien child, carefully avoiding any sudden movements. Patches approached cautiously, sniffing the air around the girl before settling beside her with a soft purr. The child reached out tentatively to stroke the cat's fur, her large eyes fixed on Finn's face. "You protected me," she whispered. "Why?" Finn thought of his daughter's smile, of all the ways the universe had taught him that children were precious and fragile and worth everything. "Because you needed help," he said simply. "And because it was the right thing to do." 20 minutes later, Finn found himself in Station Medical's family waiting area, still wearing his oil-stained work clothes and trying to process what had just happened. The alien child, who'd introduced herself as Lyrian Ashtar Ka, sat beside him, her small hand wrapped around a cup of hot chocolate. Patches had claimed the girl's lap, purring loudly enough to be heard across the room. "The resonance cascade you triggered," Dr. Hayes, the station's chief medical officer, explained as she reviewed her scanner readings. "That wasn't just a distress call. You somehow interfaced with our entire emergency grid and optimized the response pattern. Security reached your location 43 seconds faster than standard protocol allows." Lyrian ducked her head, suddenly shy. "I didn't mean to break anything. When I'm scared, sometimes things just respond to me." Finn exchanged a look with the doctor. In his 12 years working these docks, he'd seen plenty of alien technology, but nothing quite like this. The child wasn't using any visible device. The connection seemed to come from within her somehow. "You didn't break anything," Dr. Hayes assured her gently. "In fact, you might have just demonstrated the most sophisticated emergency response interface we've ever recorded. The system recognized your distress and automatically optimized for rescue protocols." The waiting room door chimed, and Finn looked up to see someone who made his breath catch in his throat. The newcomer stood nearly 7 feet tall, with the same pale blue-silver skin as Lyrian, but marked with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and flow like living tattoos. Her features were sharp and elegant, with large dark eyes that held both authority and barely contained panic. "Lyrian!" The woman crossed the room in 3 quick strides, dropping to her knees beside the child's chair. She spoke rapidly in what must have been their native language, her hands moving in graceful gestures as she examined her daughter for injuries. "I'm fine, Mother," Lyrian replied in standard, glancing meaningfully at Finn. "This human protected me. His name is Finn, and this is Patches." The woman, clearly Lyrian's parent, slowly turned to face him. Up close, Finn could see the same intelligence in her eyes that marked her daughter, but tempered with years of experience and responsibility. When she spoke, her voice carried the measured tones of someone accustomed to command. "I am Commander Naya Ashtar Ka of the Zephyrian Diplomatic Corps. My daughter tells me you risked your life to defend her from kidnappers." She paused, studying his face with an intensity that made him fidget. "This is not a small thing among my people. Why did you intervene?" Finn felt heat rise in his cheeks. The honest answer, that he couldn't stand by and watch a child suffer because his own daughter's death still haunted his dreams, seemed too personal to share with a stranger. "She needed help," he said instead. "Anyone would have done the same." Commander Ashtar Ka's expression softened slightly, though her posture remained formal. "I have lived among humans for 3 years now, Mr. Nakamura, is it? Most of your species would not have risked themselves for an alien child, especially not against armed criminals. Most humans haven't lost." He caught himself before the words could escape. The last thing this woman needed was his tragic backstory. Look, she was scared and they were hurting her. That's all I needed to know. But Lyrian was watching him with those two perceptive eyes, and he had the uncomfortable feeling that she'd somehow sensed what he hadn't said. Zephyrian children, he was beginning to realize, were far more aware of their surroundings than human kids. "The kidnappers mentioned buyers," Commander Ashtar Ka said, her voice taking on a harder edge. "Did they say anything else that might help station security track them down?" Finn replayed the encounter in his mind, pulling out details he'd absorbed without fully processing. The guy with the tattoos called her Zephyrian nobility, said she was worth more than I'd make in 10 lifetimes, and the woman had augmented eyes, orange glow, probably military-grade implants. The commander's jaw tightened. "Slaver networks have been targeting Zephyrian children for months now. Our neural machine interface abilities make us valuable to certain unsavory organizations." She looked down at her daughter, and Finn caught a glimpse of vulnerability beneath the diplomatic facade. "Lyrian is particularly gifted, which makes her especially attractive to traffickers." "Is that what she did with the emergency systems?" Finn asked. "Neural machine interface?" "In a sense." Commander Ashtar Ka helped Lyrian settle more comfortably in her chair, Patches adjusting her position accordingly. "Our people evolved alongside sophisticated technology. We can sense electromagnetic patterns, communicate with compatible systems, sometimes even influence their behavior. But it requires training and focus, skills that most children don't develop until adolescence." Lyrian looked up from stroking Patch's fur. "I've been practicing since I was 5. Father says I have unusual aptitude for someone my age." "Your father?" Finn asked, then immediately felt awkward for prying. "Ambassador Vek Ashtar Ka, my bondmate," the commander explained. "He's currently off station, negotiating trade agreements with the Centauri Alliance." "When I tell him what happened?" She shook her head, and Finn caught a hint of steel beneath her diplomatic composure. "He will want to meet the human who protected our daughter." The way she said "protected" carried weight beyond the simple word. There was something ceremonial about it, as if the act carried implications Finn didn't fully understand. "I just did what anyone should do," he protested. But Commander Ashtar Ka was shaking her head. "Among my people, accepting responsibility for a child's welfare, especially outside one's own clan, creates bonds that transcend species barriers. You didn't just help Lyrian today, Mr. Nakamura. You chose to stand as her guardian against those who would harm her." Finn felt something twist in his chest. The word guardian brought back too many memories of promises he'd made and failed to keep. "I'm not looking for any kind of formal arrangement," he said quickly. "I just didn't want to see her get hurt." But even as he said it, he found himself looking at the child beside him. The way she trusted enough to let Patches curl up in her lap. The quiet confidence in her posture now that her mother had arrived. The grateful smile she'd given him when he'd told the medical staff she could keep the cat with her during her examination. Commander Ashtar Ka seemed to read something in his expression because her own features softened. "I'm not suggesting anything that would make you uncomfortable, but I would like to invite you to dinner tomorrow evening, as thanks. And so my daughter can properly express her gratitude." "Can Patches come too?" Lyrian asked suddenly. "She helped save me, and I think she likes me." The cat in question opened one green eye and purred louder, as if agreeing with the assessment. Finn felt the walls he'd built around his heart crack just a little. "I think she'd like that," he heard himself saying. "And yes, we can bring Patches." As they arranged the details, Finn tried to ignore the way Commander Ashtar Ka's smile seemed to transform her entire face, or how natural it felt to include himself in plans for someone else's family. The next evening found Finn standing outside the diplomatic quarters residential section, wearing his cleanest work shirt and carrying a small carrier containing one very curious calico cat. He'd spent most of the day questioning his decision to accept the dinner invitation, but every time he considered backing out, he remembered Lyrian's grateful smile and found himself unable to disappoint her. The Ashtar Ka quarters were larger than his entire HAB module, with curved walls that seemed to flow like living architecture. Soft, shifting patterns of light moved across the surfaces, and the air carried the faint scent of something like cinnamon and ozone. Lyrian opened the door before he could announce himself, bouncing on her toes with excitement. "Finn, you came, and you brought Patches." She immediately opened the carrier to let the cat explore, and Patches emerged with typical feline dignity, tail high as she investigated these new surroundings. "Of course we came," Finn replied, surprised by how genuine his smile felt. "We wouldn't miss it." Commander Ashtar Ka appeared in the doorway behind her daughter, and Finn's breath caught. Out of her formal diplomatic uniform, wearing flowing robes in shades of deep blue and silver, she looked less like a government official and more like, well, like the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen. "Mr. Nakamura," she said, inclining her head in what he was learning was a formal Zephyrian greeting. "Welcome to our home. I am honored that you accepted our invitation." "Just Finn, please," he said, then added awkwardly, "And thank you for including Patches. I know it's unusual to bring pets to dinner." "Patches is not a pet," Lyrian declared, scooping up the cat as she wound between the child's legs. "She's family. Right, Patches?" The cat purred and butted her head against Lyrian's chin, and Finn felt that crack in his heart widen a little more. Dinner was unlike anything Finn had ever experienced. The food was prepared in what Commander Ashtar Ka explained was traditional Zephyrian style, dishes that changed flavor and texture as they cooled, accompanied by beverages that shifted color in response to the drinker's mood. But more than the exotic cuisine, it was the conversation that captivated him. The station's emergency grid responded to Lyrian's distress in ways we've never recorded before, Commander Ashtar Ka was saying as she served a dish that looked like crystallized starlight. "Our people have always been able to interface with compatible technology, but usually it requires physical contact and significant concentration." What Lyrian did was purely instinctive, Finn observed, watching the child feed Patches small pieces of what appeared to be some kind of protein synthesis. She was scared, and the systems just responded to help her. "Exactly." The commander's eyes lit with intellectual excitement. "It suggests that station infrastructure has evolved beyond our previous understanding. The AI networks are becoming sophisticated enough to recognize and respond to emotional states, not just conscious commands." Finn leaned forward, intrigued despite himself. "That could revolutionize how we handle emergency situations, if the systems can detect distress automatically. They could optimize response patterns without waiting for manual alerts," Commander Ashtar Ka finished. "You see the implications immediately. I'm impressed. Most humans struggle with the concept of empathic technology. Most humans haven't spent 12 years keeping finicky cargo systems running," Finn replied, then paused as he realized they'd been talking for nearly an hour. When was the last time he'd had a conversation that engaged him this thoroughly? "Sorry, I don't usually talk shop at dinner." "Don't apologize," she said softly. "It's refreshing to meet someone who thinks practically about complex systems. Too many of the academics I work with get lost in theory." Their eyes met across the table, and Finn felt something electric pass between them. Not just attraction, though there was definitely that, but recognition. The sense of finding someone who understood how his mind worked. "Mother," Lyrian said suddenly, breaking the moment, "can you show Finn the star charts? I want him to see where we come from." Commander Ashtar Ka smiled at her daughter. "Of course, little star." She gestured, and one wall of the dining area became transparent, revealing a three-dimensional display of local space. "This is the Zephyr system, our home." A cluster of planets appeared, orbiting twin suns that pulsed with gentle light. "It's beautiful," Finn breathed, and meant it. The system looked nothing like the harsh industrial platforms he was used to, more like a work of art than a place people lived. "The seventh planet is Zephyr Prime, where Lyrian was born," the commander continued. "The cities are built into the planet's natural crystal formations, so they sing in harmony with the wind patterns. It's where she learned to listen to the voice of technology." "Is that how you think of it?" Finn asked the child. "As voices?" Lyrian nodded solemnly. "Everything that thinks has a voice. Computers, ships, even the station itself. Most people just don't know how to hear them." She looked at him curiously. "But I think you might be able to learn. You listen to the cargo systems, don't you? When they're not working right?" Finn blinked, surprised by her perceptiveness. Yeah, I guess I do. I can usually tell what's wrong with a system just by listening to how it runs." "You see?" Commander Ashtar Ka's voice carried a note of excitement. "That's the foundation of neural-machine interface. You're already doing it instinctively." As the evening progressed, Finn found himself drawn deeper into their world. Commander Ashtar Ka shared stories of diplomatic missions to distant worlds, while Lyrian demonstrated her ability to make the apartment's lighting system dance in patterns that matched her emotions. Patches seemed to understand the alien child's moods better than anyone, purring when she was happy and moving closer when she grew quiet. "The kidnappers," Finn said eventually, during a lull in the conversation. "Are you worried they might try again?" Commander Ashtar Ka's expression grew serious. "Station security believes they've left for now, but yes. The slaver networks are persistent, and Lyrian's abilities make her a high-value target." She reached across the table to squeeze her daughter's hand. "It's one reason why meeting you has been so significant. Knowing there are humans willing to protect Zephyrian children." "Any children," Finn corrected quietly. "I would have done the same for any kid in that situation." "I know," she said, and her smile was warm enough to melt the ice around his heart. "That's what makes it meaningful." Later, as they cleared the dishes together while Lyrian played with Patches in the living area, Commander Ashtar Ka touched his arm gently. "I hope you'll consider visiting again. Lyrian has taken quite a shine to you and—" She paused, seeming to choose her words carefully. "It's been a long time since I've met someone who made me want to share our world." Finn looked through the doorway at the alien child curled up on the floor with his cat, both of them completely content, and felt something he'd thought was dead forever stir back to life. "I'd like that," he said. "I'd like that very much." 3 days later, Finn was calibrating a plasma conduit in Cargo Bay 12 when every light on the station flickered and died. Emergency power kicked in moments later, bathing everything in red, but the main grid remained down. Patches, who had taken to following him to work since their dinner with the Ashtar Ka family, yowled in distress. "What the hell?" Finn muttered, checking his handheld scanner. The readings made no sense. Power was flowing through the conduits, but something was actively draining it faster than the reactors could compensate. "This isn't a mechanical failure." His comlink crackled to life with Commander Ashtar Ka's voice, tense with urgency. "Finn, are you receiving? We need your help immediately." "I'm here," he replied, already gathering his tools. "What's happening?" "Someone's introduced a cascade virus into the station's primary AI network. It's designed to target systems with neural interface capabilities, and it's spreading through every connected device. If we can't stop it, life support will fail within 2 hours." Finn's blood ran cold. 2 hours to save 40,000 people. "Where are you?" "Central Computer Core, level 15. Bring whatever interface equipment you have. We're going to need every option available. The journey through the station's emergency-lit corridors felt like a nightmare. Finn passed panicking civilians, overwhelmed security teams, and maintenance crews trying desperately to isolate failing systems. Patches stayed close to his side, her fur standing on end as she sensed the electronic chaos surrounding them. The computer core was a cathedral of technology. Walls lined with processing nodes that normally pulsed with steady blue light. Now they flickered erratically, some dark, others strobing in patterns that hurt to look at. Commander Ashtar Ka stood at the central console, her hands dancing over holographic interfaces while sweat beaded on her forehead. "Thank the stars," she breathed when she saw him. "I can slow the cascade, but I can't stop it. The virus is adapting faster than I can counter it." "Where's Lyrian?" Finn asked, noticing the child's absence. "Safe in our quarters with a security detail. This level of system chaos could seriously harm her if she tried to interface directly." The commander's voice cracked slightly. "But I don't know how else to fight this." "The virus is designed specifically to counter adult Zephyrian neural patterns." Finn moved to the nearest diagnostic station, his scanner revealing the scope of the disaster. The cascade was eating through system after system like digital wildfire. "How long do we have before life support fails?" 93 minutes, she replied tersely. "And after that, atmospheric recycling stops. We have maybe 6 hours of breathable air after that, depending on panic-induced oxygen consumption. 40,000 people, including Lyrian, including Commander Ashtar Ka, including everyone on this station who depended on him to keep the infrastructure running." "Show me the virus pattern," he said, his mind already racing through possibilities. The holographic display revealed a complex data structure that moved like a living thing, evolving and adapting as it consumed system resources. But Finn had spent years working with similar patterns, not as sophisticated, but following the same basic principles. "It's based on cargo optimization algorithms," he realized. "Someone took standard logistics software and weaponized it. Look," he highlighted specific data streams. "These are efficiency routines designed to maximize resource utilization. But instead of optimizing cargo distribution, it's optimizing system consumption." Commander Ashtar Ka stared at the display. "You're right. But knowing what it is doesn't help us stop it." "Actually, it does." Finn was already connecting his handheld interface to the core system. "Cargo optimization software has to respond to priority overrides. Otherwise, you couldn't handle emergency shipments. If I can convince the virus that there's a higher priority task, it might abandon the cascade to focus on the new priority," she finished. "But what task would be important enough? Protecting the life support systems themselves. If I can make the virus think that life support is cargo that needs to be optimized rather than consumed." Finn's fingers flew over his interface, translating years of dock management experience into code the system could understand. But even as he worked, he could see the cascade spreading faster. Whatever they tried, it wasn't going to be enough. Unless... "We need Lyrian," he said suddenly. "Absolutely not. The neural feedback could kill her." "Not direct interface," Finn insisted. "But the virus is adapting to your adult thought patterns. A child might think differently enough to confuse it. And her connection to the emergency systems. She could guide my override codes through pathways the virus hasn't mapped yet." Commander Ashtar Ka's face was pale with fear and indecision. "The risk is worth it if it saves everyone on this station," Finn said firmly. "Including her." After a moment that felt like eternity, she nodded and activated her comlink. "Security, bring Lyrian to the computer core. Full protection detail, but move fast." Lyrian arrived 7 minutes later, taking in the chaotic scene with wide eyes. Patches immediately ran to her, and the child scooped up the cat with trembling hands. "The station is sick," she said quietly. "I can hear it crying. We need your help to make it better," Finn explained, kneeling to her level. "Not direct connection, that's too dangerous. But I need you to listen to the patterns and help me find pathways the virus hasn't blocked yet. Lyrian nodded solemnly, setting Patches down and moving to stand between Finn and her mother. Show me what to do. For the next hour, they worked in perfect synchronization. Finn would identify a potential override pathway. Lyrian would listen to the system's response and guide him toward clearer channels, and Commander Ashtar Ka would implement their solutions at the core level. It was unlike anything Finn had ever experienced, less like operating technology and more like conducting a three-way conversation. There, Lyrian said suddenly, pointing at a cascade pattern that had just appeared on the display. That part is lonely. It's not connected to the main virus anymore. She was right. Finn could see it now, a section of the cascade that had become isolated, continuing to run its destructive routine, but no longer receiving updates from the core virus. If we can trick that isolated section into thinking it's found what it's looking for, it'll stop searching and enter maintenance mode, Commander Ashtar Ka breathed, which will create a gap in the overall pattern. And gaps can be exploited, Finn added, his fingers already implementing the solution. The isolated section flickered and went dormant. Then another. The cascade began collapsing as each section found its assigned cargo and settled into passive monitoring mode. Life support restoration in progress, the computer announced. All primary systems nominal. Finn slumped against the console, exhausted but triumphant. 40,000 people were going to keep breathing because a gruff dockworker, a diplomatic commander, and an 8-year-old alien child had figured out how to think like a computer virus. We did it, Commander Ashtar Ka said, pulling both Finn and Lyrian into an embrace. We actually did it. Together, Lyrian added, and Patches purred agreement from her arms. As station lights returned to normal and the emergency alerts finally fell silent, Finn realized that somewhere in the chaos of saving lives, the three of them had become something more than allies. They'd become a team, maybe even a family. 2 weeks later, Finn stood in the station's main assembly hall wearing ceremonial robes that felt more expensive than his entire wardrobe combined. The formal recognition ceremony for the computer core crisis had drawn representatives from a dozen species, but his attention was focused on the alien child beside him, similarly dressed and trying not to fidget. Are you sure about this? He asked Lyrian quietly as they waited for the proceedings to begin. These Zephyrian adoption protocols seem pretty permanent. Mother explained everything, she replied solemnly. If you become my second parent, it means you're responsible for teaching me practical skills and protecting me when she can't. But it also means I'm responsible for caring for you when you're old and making sure you're never alone. She looked up at him with those two perceptive dark eyes. Do you want to be alone anymore, Finn? The question hit him harder than expected. Did he? For 3 years, he'd convinced himself that isolation was safer, that caring too much only led to heartbreak. But these past weeks, sharing meals with the Ashtar Ka family, teaching Lyrian about cargo systems while she showed him how to hear the station's electronic heartbeat, falling asleep to the sound of Naya's voice as she told him stories about distant worlds. It had reminded him what it felt like to be truly alive. No, he said honestly, I don't want to be alone anymore. The ceremony itself was unlike anything in human tradition. Rather than simple vows, it required all 3 participants to interface with the station's AI simultaneously, creating a permanent neural record of their commitment to each other. When Finn felt his consciousness briefly merge with Naya's and Lyrian's, he experienced a moment of perfect understanding. Their hopes, their fears, their absolute certainty that they belonged together. Ambassador Vek Ashtar Ka, who had returned from his diplomatic mission just in time for the ceremony, formally welcomed Finn into the family with words in the Zephyrian language that translated roughly to, Bond guardian of our daughter, protector of our hearts, welcome to our clan. But it was the broader consequences of their actions that truly staggered Finn. The Cascade virus hadn't been a random attack. It had been a test run by the same slaver networks that had targeted Lyrian. By successfully countering it, They'd proven that human-Zephyrian cooperation could defend against technological threats that neither species could handle alone. The Station Council has approved the establishment of joint human-Zephyrian technical teams. Commander Ashtar Ka, now simply Naya to him, explained as they walked home through corridors that sparkled with new bioluminescent panels. Your insights about cargo optimization algorithms have revolutionized our approach to system security. And Lyrian's emergency response integration is being studied by every major shipping hub in the sector. Finn added, watching the child skip ahead with Patches. She's going to be famous. We're all going to be famous, Naya corrected, slipping her hand into his. The first human-Zephyrian bonded family. There are already requests for interviews, cultural exchange programs, even a documentary. Finn groaned. I just wanted to keep the cargo systems running. And now you're helping design the next generation of station infrastructure, she laughed. The universe has a sense of humor about these things. Their new quarters, significantly larger than Finn's old HAB module, had been configured to accommodate both human and Zephyrian needs. The walls could display star charts or transform into entertainment screens, while the temperature and lighting adjusted automatically to each occupant's preferences. Patches had claimed the sunny spot by the main window as her personal domain. Papa Finn, Lyrian said, testing out the new title as they settled in for the evening. Will you teach me more about the cargo systems tomorrow? I want to understand how you make them happy. They're not actually happy, Finn protested, but he was smiling. They're just functioning efficiently. Same thing, she replied, with the absolute certainty of childhood. When things work the way they're supposed to, they're happy. People too. Later, after Lyrian had been tucked into bed with Patches curled at her feet, Finn and Naya sat on their balcony overlooking the station's central plaza. Ships from across the sector docked and departed below them, their running lights painting trails of color through the artificial night. Any regrets? Naya asked, leaning against his shoulder. Finn thought about it seriously. His life had changed beyond recognition, from solitary dock worker to husband and father, from someone who fixed cargo systems to someone who helped design the future of human-alien cooperation. But when he remembered Lyrian's terrified cries in that cargo bay, and how natural it had felt to step between her and danger, none, he said firmly, though I never expected to become a diplomat. You're not a diplomat, she corrected. You're something much rarer, a bridge. Someone who can see connections that others miss and help very different minds work together. Is that your professional assessment, Commander? No, she said, turning to face him. That's my personal assessment as someone who loves you. The words still sent electricity through him. After 3 years of emotional numbness, feeling this much, love, hope, responsibility, joy, was almost overwhelming. But as he looked through the window at their daughter sleeping peacefully, safe and protected and surrounded by family, he realized that overwhelming didn't necessarily mean bad. I love you too, he said, and meant it completely. Both of you. All of us, I guess. All of us, she agreed, and sealed the promise with a kiss that tasted like starlight. The next morning brought news that would ripple across the galaxy. The joint human-Zephyrian technical breakthrough had attracted attention from the Galactic Trade Council, and 3 major shipping corporations were already implementing modified versions of Lyrian's emergency response protocols. What had begun as one man's instinctive need to protect a frightened child had evolved into a new model for interspecies cooperation. Finn Nakamura Ashtar Ka, the morning news announcer declared, using his new legal name. Former cargo systems specialist turned family patriarch and co-developer of revolutionary station security protocols, will be addressing the Trade Council next month alongside his bonded family. Finn nearly choked on his coffee. Family patriarch? It's a human translation issue, Naya explained, not quite successfully hiding her smile. The Zephyrian term doesn't have a direct equivalent, but it roughly means protector-teacher heart bond. That's much worse, Finn muttered. but Lyrian was already bouncing in her chair with excitement. We get to travel to the Trade Council stations. I've never been to Kepler Prime. She paused, looking suddenly worried. Patches can come, right? Patches goes where we go, Finn assured her, and the cat in question purred agreement from her perch on the windowsill. As they prepared for breakfast, Finn reflected on the strange turns his life had taken. 6 months ago, he'd been a lonely man fixing cargo systems and trying not to think about the daughter he'd lost. Now he was part of a family that spanned species, helping to design the future of galactic commerce and discovering that the heart he'd thought was broken beyond repair had simply been waiting for the right people to heal it. Papa Finn? Lyrian's voice interrupted his thoughts. Are you happy? He looked around their morning-bright kitchen, at Naya humming softly as she prepared their meal, at Lyrian carefully feeding Patches small pieces of protein synthesis, at the star charts on the walls showing the vast universe that now felt like home rather than an endless void. Yes, little star, he said, using Naya's pet name for their daughter. I'm happy. And for the first time in years, he truly was.